My name is Vincent Pinero. I'm currently active fire safety director at Mount Sinai Hospital. I'm 56 years old. On 9/11, I was assigned to Ladder 128. I was in the firehouse when somebody came in and said, plane has struck the World Trade Center tower. Once they cleared the building, they allowed us to go into the tunnel. So now the companies were coming through the tunnel. When we were halfway through the tunnel, we got a call on the radio that the South Tower collapsed. What was very eerie, Manhattan was locked down as we were trained for a terrorist attack. They were going to close off all the bridges, and all the people in the street were crying and waving to us. As the tower was coming down, it was collapsing. So I thought, because when the tower first rocked, the top rocked, and it made a really loud noise that brought us to our knees from the steel grinding. We put our masks on, I had him put his mask on, and then we started running towards the building, because I thought the top was just going to break off the building, but in essence, once it made that twist, then they started coming down. Pressure was blowing out all kinds of pieces. There were parts and metal the size of houses flying by us, and then people were being hit right around there. I dove onto the floor, and when the entire building came down, I was laying on the floor. It was like a shock wave when it hit the ground, and a wave threw me up. Now the dust was around, I had my mask on, I was able to get up, because people that were alive were screaming in the dusk. It was just, you couldn't see, and people started running. All these firefighters dropped air tanks all over the place. So I had an air tank, and I was opening them and putting them under people's faces. I found a fire truck with a firefighter in it, and he was crushed in there, and I was trying to pull him out. He was dead. People were jumping out for these buildings and falling onto the ground and breaking into pieces, basically. Even they were ripped open, some of these people walking around in shock. I was on the outskirts of the building. There was a lot of maydays being called. And when firefighters give maydays, we're trained to give a mayday as soon as possible. And we're afraid to give maydays because it's a sign like you may be like a little scared or something like that. So usually firemen wait to the last minute to give maydays. We were hearing a lot of maydays. So this is a pile now the size of an entire city block. And in this pile, there was still a few people alive. One of the chiefs was radioing until he died. You know, there was people we were trying to get before they died. I got back to the firehouse that night at about 10:30 in the evening. We were lucky. We all made it back. Guys didn't even speak. I felt like I was the biggest failure in the world because I'm paid to save people's lives. And even though we were able to get 25,000 people out, and some of them we were able to get out after the collapse through the basement, but I had to put that uniform on. I felt horrible. When you're paid to save people's lives and this much happens around you, it's a little overbearing. It was difficult. I put the uniform on because I had to play funerals, and I was there for those families, but it was horrible. I felt very lucky that I was able to live through that, and I didn't think I would, and I was almost caught in 7 again. World Trade Center 7, later in the evening, I was answering a mayday there, and a chief ran down the street and pulled me out of there because my radios failed. So I didn't know that I was even in a collapse zone. They called it a collapse zone, so I wanted to answer the mayday and help them. I mean, if you've ever been in that spot where you're in trouble and you need help, and you're talking to these people and they need help, you get somebody on the radio, you're glad you got them. And with the type of traffic and chaos on the radio, you know, I was going in there to get them. I didn't care what happened. No, we were pulled out of that area. I was pulled out of that area. Also, what I learned, even though they do call us the first responders, the stewardesses on the plane were calling to the other stewardesses that were off and telling them, we got hijackers on the plane. And one of them that sticks out in my mind was this tall blonde woman that she described that was fighting the terrorists on the plane. They slit her throat. Now, they found at the time with this #2 tower where the plane went through the building, they found a set of arms from a stewardess that were wired with a coat hanger, and they were torn off at the shoulder. Those stewardesses, the first responders, because they were fighting this on the plane just before those planes hit the building. My personal saving of people was probably, I don't know. I mean, I went down into the North Tower. It was dark. It was dusty. There was no lights. I would say maybe 15 or 20. We were fighting to recover whatever we could recover for people, whether it was just some sections of them, whole sections of them. And then a crew comes over with an American flag. You take the people, you put them in the basket, and that's, that's a hard thing to do because it's hours, and most of the people are crushed. There's steel holding them and things, so you have to cut steel, and you're putting them together for their family, to view them. After they deemed no one was alive, they wanted to close the site and use dynamite, blast everything, clean it out. So that turned into a problem because a lot of the widows and orphans asked us not to do that and try to stay there. So that was another big affair where a lot of people were arrested, trying to fight to keep crews there to dig everyone out and bring as many people home. So at least I know that whatever parts I found, which were a couple, and then we found the whole person, at least this family had somebody back that they could, and at that point, that's all they wanted. They wanted something of their family. It was a very long, tiresome day.